So I came here to talk to you about ripping off the state of Oklahoma on food stamps.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But Saeem Sadiq does know exactly what we're talking about. We'll get to that in a minute, but first let's back up and show you how we got here.
Yeah, we'll just...
That's Sadiq again behind the counter of the SQ trip on Northwest 23rd. Only this time he's more than willing to talk and hand over cash for food stamp benefits.
How much you got left? Okay, tomorrow.
The scam is 50 cents on the dollar. In this case, he's talking to an undercover agent with the DHS Office of Inspector General.
Usually it's for cash and or drugs.
Keck Upchurch is the special agent in charge of the DHS food stamp trafficking unit.
When these individuals defraud the system, the food stamp program, then those monies need to be paid back to the food stamp program, because that program is for individuals that are in need.
DHS relies on tips and forensic analysis of transaction records to identify fraud.
If you focus on the retailer, conduct an investigation on them, the data will lead you to all the recipients that are conducting those illegal transactions at that store.
But not every scam is easy to identify.
That's going to be more than $100.
In this case, Sadiq goes on a shopping trip. 3 shopping carts full of junk food and soda. It's all paid for using food stamps and all perfectly legal and untraceable. But watch as the food is loaded up into a private truck and later ends up for sale inside SQ Trip.
Unfortunately, there's a never-ending supply of work for us.
The DHS fraud unit recovers cash from crooks and prevents millions of dollars worth of future fraud, money that goes back to families with real needs.
Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, but all I know is, sometimes everybody at one point in time needs help.
Latavia Stewart is a full-time mom and part-time pharmacy student. She's as upset as anyone when she hears of people abusing benefit programs.
It's not a child's fault to have to be hungry.
Stewart says she's thankful for DHS investigators and is looking forward to the day she can give back to the system that's helped her out. And it's because of people like Stewart that we find ourselves here.
I want to give you a chance to say anything you want to say about buying food stamps and stocking your store with them. Nothing? You got nothing to say?
Phil continues this exclusive Fox investigation.
Oklahoma law regulates native species of snakes and reptiles and requires permits to own, breed, or sell many of these reptiles. But that doesn't stop the sale of reptiles that could do much more than just make your skin crawl.
I have sidewinders, atrox, mojaves, prairies. That's about it, I think. I've got blacktails coming in.
Time after time,
You got some nice vipers.
we found people either offering to sell or willing to introduce us to the sellers of venomous snakes and other reptiles. But taking us by surprise was this exchange.
I got a boy is wanting to get rid of a 3-footer.
A few phone calls later and we found ourselves here, waiting in a parking lot situated between a Toys R Us and Baby Depot to meet this guy. That's an American alligator. Just a juvenile right now. Full-grown ones like these at the Oklahoma City Zoo can reach between 10 and 15 feet long.
He's never bit anybody.
He hasn't?
Ever. He's never bit anybody.
Buddy, how you
That's not
doing?
to say he won't, but like if you start petting on him, he'll kind of calm down.
It's like a time bomb. When he gets bigger, it's still a wild animal.
Jack Hanna's career has been working with wild animals. During a stop to support conservation efforts in Oklahoma, we talked with him about the results of our investigation.
This is America, so I'm not saying nobody can have anything. I'm just saying with the proper facilities.
Hanna says many exotic animal owners do not have those facilities. It's something we found true when we asked the guy with the gator.
He had an indoor pen set up for him for a while, but having it inside, he threw it outside. He said that he did good outside with heated water all winter long.
It turns out he's selling the gator for a friend. On this night, there was no sale. Instead of getting cash, we pulled out our camera.
He knows that he's not supposed to have an alligator in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
Our middleman talked with us, but asked we not use his name.
Did your friend have a license for that alligator?
I'm sure he doesn't.
He said he didn't like being the middleman, but admitted he does have his own venomous snake. He got it from Jim. Remember him?
Yeah, we can meet up somewhere.
Jim is the one who offered to sell us rattlesnakes, some native, some not. He told us a sidewinder like this one at the zoo was just $25, But we found out even though it's venomous, it's not considered native, and therefore the state says you don't need a permit to purchase, and there's no need to prove you have the experience needed to be a safe snake handler.
I don't like how they bounce back and forth from house to house. You see them all over Craigslist.
Our middleman says underground reptile sales are a problem.
I think the people who are raising them should be a little more responsible about who they sell them to. Now, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife is responsible for investigating illegal reptile sales. We did invite them to be a part of our story and our investigation, but they declined. One game warden told us they are constantly working these sort of cases, but they take time. Reporting in the studio, Phil Cross, Fox 25 News.
Our investigation begins here with a 2006 Ford Escape that just rolled past the 100,000-mile mark. We took it to be tuned up at Christian Brothers Automotive in northwest Oklahoma City. We chose this faith-based shop because it's one of the highest-rated auto repair shops on Angie's List in Oklahoma City. Their mechanic gave our SUV a full inspection, hitting all of the Ford recommended services for a vehicle with an odometer just past the 100,000-mile mark. A new fuel filter, coolant flush and fill, new brake fluid, power steering fluid change, and new transmission fluid. Then we went to work, visiting 5 Metro Jiffy Lubes asking for just an oil change. Our first stop, Norman, where they recommended we change our air filter.
Right now it has emphysema, it can't breathe.
And rear differential fluid.
You're supposed to change this fluid periodically, and this one hasn't been changed in quite a while, as you can see.
Our mechanic didn't recommend either of these be changed, but since the filter and fluid weren't brand new, we considered this a judgment call. We let them perform the services, and $138.65 later, we moved on. Our next stop at the Jiffy Lube at Southwestern was free. After looking under the hood, they told our undercover producer our car looked great. So it was on to South Pennsylvania Avenue.
Really clean. Oh, good. Everything is brand new on it.
But this Jiffy Lube did suggest we change our power steering fluid.
It had been a long time ago since started to watered down.
But our power steering fluid had just been changed by our mechanic.
So you can wait for the essence to your pump.
So we let them change it. This time our Jiffy Lube bill was $135.49. Off next to Edmond, where our undercover producer was told.
Everything else looks really good. Fuel filter looks good. Transmission, power steering, belts.
Finally, we took the Ford Escape to Jiffy Lube on North May.
I would go do the radiator. There's a fuel filter on there with the fuel system cleaning. It is all-wheel drive, so there is a rear differential on there.
After a laundry list of recommendations, our producer asked what needs to be done.
What would you recommend that I do today if I don't know any of it?
Let me go out there and take a look so I can give you a better judgment.
A few minutes later, the employee returns.
It was me, I just do it all, get it all over with and done with.
So we said, okay. And they serviced our fuel system, including changing our brand new fuel filter. Performed a radiator flush and fill, replacing our brand new coolant. Even our new rear differential fluid, just changed days before at the Jiffy Lube in Norman, was replaced. But that's not all.
Transmission and power steering, they're equally as important, but I just can't tell whether they've been done or not.
The employee brings up the power steering, a service recommended on our invoice, and one that had been performed just hours earlier by the store on South Penn. Our final bill was $586.76, and it could have been higher if we hadn't hit the brakes on some of Jiffy Lube's other recommendations, including the power steering service and replacing our brand new transmission fluid. Just 4 days later, we decided to try again, with a different producer but the same car, at this same service center on North May.
The good news is you don't need an air filter because that was brand new.
And that's where the good news ended.
The transmission needs to be flushed. They're saying that your injectors could use flushing too, your fuel system. Really? Your coolant is about 2 quarts low.
Remember, it was just 4 days prior that this same Jiffy Lube serviced the fuel system and performed a complete flush and fill of the coolant system. But that wasn't the only service they said we needed.
Power steering, they say it needs to be flushed.
Yes, that same power steering fluid that had been replaced twice in 2 weeks, once by our mechanic, once by another Jiffy Lube.
So all of the fluids in all of these are all old? Is that why they need to be flushed, or what's up?
Yeah.
When the tire steering fluid breaks down, it'll start to eat away at that seal and the high pressure end of the hose. That's when it starts leaking.
This time we told them no thanks to most of the service. They did charge us to top off our coolant system.
The coolant is about 2 quarts low.
Remember, this same Jiffy Lube had charged us nearly $160 to service our coolant system just 4 days before. At this point in our investigation, we took our concerns to the Jiffy Lube stores.
Would you ever recommend services that a car doesn't really need?
I try not to. No.
Their technicians referred us to the franchise owner, who declined our request for an interview. We did get this statement from Shell Oil, which owns Jiffy Lube, on behalf of R&P Enterprises of Oklahoma, the company that owns all of the franchises we visited. We take all allegations regarding service performed at our Jiffy Lube franchise locations seriously and are committed to conducting a thorough investigation of any complaints. At Jiffy Lube, our customers come first and our services are backed by a customer satisfaction guarantee. Jiffy Lube strives to provide quality preventative maintenance services, which includes sharing vehicle manufacturer recommendations to inform customers of the preventative maintenance schedule for their specific vehicle, as well as conducting a thorough vehicle inspection. In Medicine Park,
when we set out to do something, that we're going to get it done.
Slow and steady wins the race is becoming the motto for this mountainside construction project.
Building something on one of the side of these quartz mountains is a pretty difficult process.
Dwight Cope is the mayor of Medicine Park. He's also president of the board for the Medicine Park Aquarium and Museum of Natural Sciences.
We learn a little bit as we go, but we are determined to make it happen.
Perhaps the biggest lesson they've learned is the meaning of don't put the cart before the horse.
The simple fact of acquiring an animal before you even have appropriate animal containment facilities is just didn't make any sense to me, as well as porcupines and some other animals that are not easily cared for.
That's right, porcupines. And despite the fact that the main attraction is at this point a yet-to-be-built aquarium, last year the city of Medicine Park reimbursed the aquarium director for a $2,000 cougar cub.
The animals were here in a garage for nearly 5 weeks.
Larry Meese used to be a volunteer for the project, but walked away after he says he discovered financial problems and the potential misuse of some taxpayer funds.
If anything can be done from one to end has been done wrong.
The cougar cub was eventually returned, but porcupines, prairie dogs, and some turtles all died. An email from one museum volunteer warned the mayor and other project leaders the animal buying was getting out of hand, and that was before they learned the project had committed to get an alligator, though the gator was ultimately never purchased.
It could have been probably planned out a little bit better, but like I said, you know, it's a kind of a new process for us, and we're learning as we go, and we're trying our hardest to do the right thing.
Mayor Cope says he's always wanted animal exhibits at the museum, but admits buying them before there was a building or even appropriate cages was a mistake.
I'm not saying we're perfect and there hasn't been mistakes made, but there's nothing mischievous, malicious, or anything else.
If they want to build a museum, that's fine. Set it up, get your own money from your own sources, build your museum.
Meese says he's concerned that the town will soon be on the hook for a $300,000 loan from Comanche County. The loan documents say the city has until July 1st to start employing 20 full-time positions or risk repaying the county.
That date was an arbitrary date that was set by us because we intended to be open at that time. Had not some of our local folks that are against everything thrown a curveball into the process and taken us 6 months to get past, we would have probably made that deadline.
Mayor Cope is referring to the work of Meese and others who helped organize a petition for a state audit of the entire project.
I'm sorry people think that, but that's simply not the truth.
Meese says he simply wants accountability and appropriate oversight of the project that has already cost taxpayers thousands.